Oregon hosts, hold on one second. Let me get to this real quick. The Oregon State hosts Oregon this weekend. Mm-hmm. And do you have the lines on that one right now?
Yeah, it was 13.5, I believe.
No, I saw 16.
No, it's like, I bought it up at 17.5 when we get to bets at minus 132.
16.5. I don't know the over-under right now, though.
This game, to me, it looks a lot more different than it did before the year when what we saw at Oregon State was going to be, and what Oregon still can be.
50.5.
I think anybody's selling the boat on Oregon right now. You're getting way too ahead of your skis. But what concerns me is you've played bad on the line of scrimmage on different sides for 2 games, right? Like it hasn't been good, and that's your thing. That's what we always thought. Dan Lanning's building an SEC team out there. They're going to be really, really good up front. You brought in Dylan Gabriel, and you got Evan Stewart from A&M. Tez Johnson's coming back. Oregon should be dominating. They should be dominating like we're watching Georgia dominate. That's how good their personnel is. So the fact it's now been 2 weeks, 1 week, you had Idaho week 1. Sometimes week 1s are weird, right? Even with experienced guys. But then we go to week 2, and now the defense struggles. The defense struggles up front to stop Boise State, right? When you know that Ashton Jonty is the guy. He's 100% the guy, and you still couldn't stop him. He ran for 200 yards and 2-3 touchdowns? He's in the Heisman race for sure. But when I look at this Oregon State team, I think there is and there should be, an unbelievably huge chip on their shoulder. All we've heard all offseason, including from us and me, and I still believe Oregon can win a national championship, is how good Oregon is, how Oregon is so here. And Oregon State got left at the dance. Nobody wanted to take them. Them in Washington State. Hell, it still says Pac-12 when I look at my ESPN score update. There's 2 of y'all. Y'all were, the last kids picked for dodgeball? That was y'all. And when I watch Oregon State play under a new coaching staff, your coach left too, that's a very powerful substance for an 18 to 22-year-old as embarrassment and people telling you're the laughingstock. So now, I believe you get to host Oregon in the Civil War with a chance to totally flip on its head everything else everybody's been saying. And at least so far, see, it was different with West Virginia and Penn State because we hadn't watched Penn State yet. We've watched Oregon for 2 weeks, and there is a way where Oregon State can stay in this game. They're going to have to do it on the ground. You watch them throw. The numbers aren't bad with McCoy, that quarterback. But Oregon State's going to have to do this on the ground. But it's been proven that you can.
Yeah.
So that spread's a little bit high for me. And I'm telling you guys, it's a great opportunity for Oregon to right the ship in a rivalry game. But if there was ever a time, on Tropic Thunder, when old boy looks at him and he's like, I'm going to tag you back. And you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and eventually he gets you. Well, when all this stuff was going on, Oregon goes to the Big Ten. Guys, welcome in to the top of the Titanic. No, Oregon State, Washington State, y'all go down there to the bottom of the Titanic because if this thing sinks, y'all aren't the most important. And it did sink. And it got proven you weren't the most important. So from a schematical standpoint, can Oregon State run the ball well enough with an offense that's not great throwing to keep them in the game and run the clock and really put that game pressure on Oregon? Because don't think for a second that these Oregon players aren't hearing any of this on the outside. It's like, I thought you guys were going to win the national championship. We got Dylan Gabriel, who hadn't played bad. I don't think Dylan's played bad. He played really good. You guys got to turn on and go. All the pressure in the world is on Oregon in this game.
Yeah.
On the road. If you're in Corvallis, hey, let's pop the beers early, baby. This one could get real weird.
Was that an Al Pacino reference and a Titanic reference?
In the same one.
In the same
Only
preview?
here.
I'm tracking right along with you. The combination of Oregon giving up 221 yards on the ground to Boise State, combined with Oregon State rushing for 362 against Idaho State, 237 against San Diego State, and this game is at Oregon State, and you left them by themselves in their own conference that is now the Pac-2. I don't care if
and y'all are in the same state, David.
I'm just telling you, man. So that's 16.5? That's a lot.
Well, we're going to get the best bets. I bought this thing up to plus 17.5 at minus 132.
And maybe this is the week. Maybe this is the week that Oregon looks like the number 3 team in the country. They were top 3 perennially in
y'all should have lost to Boise State.
Maybe this is the week.
Oh, y'all
You're a couple special teams plays away.
No, you dropped the ball before you got in the end zone, and they didn't call it.
They didn't call that, and that was a bad call. And how do you go to review on that and still get that wrong?
David, that's what
I understand you don't have a shot that's right down the line. Do you have eyeballs?
David, I'm telling you right now, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, something is up. Go back to the first, go watch some of these reviews. That West Virginia first down that they gave him against Penn State that wasn't even close, there's been 4 or 5 reviews where everybody in the world that has eyes can watch and see exactly what happened, and it goes the other way. Like something's that is so bad.
Yeah.
That call's so bad.
I think we'll find out a lot more about Oregon this week, and maybe they'll get away with just like a 3-point win and still play sloppy, and we still won't know much. I just don't think they can play bad against Oregon State and still get out with a win. Maybe they can stack the box and just force them to be one-dimensional. But I think
Dylan Gabriel can
Oregon State can run the ball well enough that Oregon might be able to stack the box, and they
can stop it.
I know that's the thing.
That's like why the biggest thing, and we talked about this with other coaches. Dan Lanning was supposed to bring the presence.
And he has.
Of last year for sure, but this defense this year doesn't look like last year's defense at all. They're getting their ass whipped between the tackles.
Well,
and that's surprising from a Dan Lanning coach.
It just looks like, Dan Lanning's an incredible motivator. I mean, just go back to the Colorado pregame speech last year. It's one of the best you're going to hear. This Oregon team already looks like, we talked about Florida State. They look like last year's team was hungry. This year's team looks like they've already been fed. Oregon kind of looks like, oh, well, hey, we're back. We don't
Oregon didn't win anything.
I know, but they've won a lot of games under Dan. They haven't won the big game yet, which that's why this is so surprising.
I know it is.
Because if anybody can get you gassed up to stop the run, it's that guy right there we got on the screen. And maybe, and I know what Dan and them are going to do because he's smart. He will use this, hey, this is our week to get it going. What a better opportunity than to go into hostile territory
he's right.
in a game that's called the Civil War, right, against Oregon State and beat their ass to death and let everybody in the world know that Oregon is who they thought that we were going to be.
Yeah, and that's the only route you can take. But to Blaine's point on Oregon being incapable of stopping the runs in between the tackles, yet even when you stack the box, which they were doing a lot of that against Boise State too, one of Genty's, the 70-yard touchdown he had was untouched. When I say untouched, I'm talking about no one was even next to him, 70-yard touchdown.
Well, let's stay there. We talked about the bets. I want to go and get into the best bets here in a second, but let's go to the chat for just a couple, Blaine.
All right, let's go to JBand17. It says, fellas, loving the show and I love the content. I'm telling you right now, if one of you do a motivational speech for Oregon State, it's a W and I'll put the rent on the money line.
Boys, were we talking about that before the show or what?
Before the show.
All right, let's go to JHC. He says, watch this end up being the week we see Oregon be the Oregon team that everyone thought they would be at the beginning of the season. Sooner or later, it's going to happen.
When you have that good of players, and that much experience, I mean, you would just think eventually that's going to crack, right? Like it's going to show itself. I'd rather, but what a great problem to not play great and win. Like it's a great problem.
All right, let's go to I'm Never Ducking. He says, fellas, I'm worried about this Dan Lanning team this year. D-line looks average. DG's been playing well, but the D-line and secondary, I'm not impressed.
Well, it just looks the opposite of everything we've seen from Oregon. It was like, yes, Bo Nix and this, being able to sling the ball around, that's great. But what makes this Oregon team dangerous? And why do we look in the future saying Dan Lanning's building a monster? It's because of the line of scrimmage. Because if you know anything about the sport, that's where the game is really won and lost.
All right, let's go to the Beaver Man. He says, guys, I don't know if I can read this. Guys, F these haters. I don't even care. Oregon's ass, and we all know it. Beavers to the top. We don't even need Jonathan Smith.
I love the confidence. Why not, though? If you're Oregon State, what do you got to lose?
Yeah.
You've already been pointed at and laughed at. You're already the fat kid at recess. You want to know how he gets back? You ever seen Just Friends with Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah.
Oregon State could go from him in high school, where he's got braces and he's overweight and he's got this terrible hair and none of the girls like him and he's always friend zone, to pulling up at the high school reunion in a Ferrari with a bankroll and hadn't had a carb since 2004. It could be. What's up, YouTube? Hey, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. We'd really, really appreciate it. If you already have, you guys are the best. Make sure you hit that like button as well and keep spreading the word. It's a long season, right? We're basically just on first down. Hell, honestly, we're really still in warm-ups.